What's up, family? It's Caden, and I'm here with Pastor Eric Wilkerson. This pastor, he's the pastor of Up From the World Ministries. I am truly excited about this conversation because I truly believe what he is doing is what the being light in the world is all about. So before we talk about how he was able to purchase 25 homes with his church, Pastor, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Pastor Eric Wilkerson. I'm the pastor of Up From the World Ministries here in Detroit, Michigan, where I've been pastoring this church for 20 years. I'm actually the founder of Up From the World Ministries. It was founded here in the city of Detroit, and we've been here ministering the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ and doing the work of the ministry for those 20 years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, what inspired you to have your church purchase these homes?
Well, in 2008, we experienced that housing market crash. And in the city of Detroit, unlike any other city across the nation, we were inundated, for lack of a better term, with a lot of homes, and they were vacant. And several of those homes and parcels of land are around our church. And so as we drove through here every Sunday for service and every Wednesday for Bible studies, we saw the blight and purchased one home. And while working on that one home, looked down the block and saw all the others and decided that why don't we purchase all of these and renovate these also. And once I purchased them, I went back to my congregation and pitched it to them, the idea, the vision, and they were with it. And once we did that, I raised about $30,000 in the church to get that project up and running. And I promised the church, the people, what I did was I kind of pitched it like a small business investment corporation. I had the church be the investors, and I raised about $30,000, and I gave everyone that contributed to that fund 25% interest on whatever they gave me. So if you gave me 10,000, I gave you back 12.5, and I think I kept the money for about 90 days or something like that. And they can attest to the fact that everybody was paid back their principal along with their 25% interest just to jumpstart what we were doing in the community. And once we got it started, we would take the tithe and the offering and the rental receipts and do the next home.
That's insane to me. And so I didn't even know that part of the story. You gave everyone that invested 25% interest. I love investing, and I'm a huge stock market investor. And, the thing is that, and what I tell everyone, an investment that I love, which is the S&P 500 index, something that I have most of my money into, that on average only produces a 10% return. And that is probably one of the best investments for people to put money into for a long time growth. But you're saying you gave everyone that contributed to this fund a 30% return. I guess my question is
25% return.
How is that? How were you able to even give them a return so quickly? Like what did you do to be able to give them such a great return so fast?
Well, what we did was we would take the tithe and the offering, and when it was time to return it, we returned it, the principal along with the 25%. So the project was actually done with that fund that we raised initially, and with the tithe and offering. I tell people all the time, it was real simple. Instead of taking, all we did, Caden, was we switched the buildings that we put the money in. Generally, when people raise money on Sundays, they put it in the bank building. So instead of us putting it in the bank building, we put it in these houses that I saw as a building. So our principal is actually still in the house. And then every month, because we only charge our membership $500 a month, every month we give that $500 back. So over the course of a year, you're talking about $6,000. So let's say it takes about $25,000 to renovate a house from top to bottom. That means if we had that $25,000 sitting in the bank, what's the APR? It's not even a percent, is it?
Less than 1%.
Exactly. So we have that 25,000 sitting in the bank, you get less than 1% on it. But if you take that $25,000 and put it in a house, you get $6,000, which is almost 25% interest back on your initial investment of $25,000. And then you still own the property. And we've done that, and we just repeated that same process 25 times.
You're absolutely blowing my mind right now. And so I'm about to go totally off script with the list of questions that I had. And so I guess why, and you can answer this, why don't most churches do like this type of things? It just seems like a no-brainer. Instead of putting the money in the bank, and you can start with one property, like you said, invest that into a property, and instead of the bank holding the money, the property is holding the principal, and the interest on top of that is phenomenal, based on what you were able to do.
Exactly. Now, why other people don't do it, I don't know. Well, you're gonna have to, to do the business side of ministry, you got to have a head for business. So it just made sense to me that all of these properties being available. I mean, what is the chance of you getting this many properties on the same 2 blocks in an urban area? It's unheard of. People can have 25 or 30 houses, but you probably have them in 25 or 30 different neighborhoods. Because these houses were behind the church, we bought them all and invested in our community. And it was a win-win for everyone. It's a win-win for the city, because now the houses are back on the property tax roll. It's a win-win for the members because their rent is only $500 a month. We don't go up. I mean, just here recently, we increased it to $600 for the newer people that are moving in. But if you're tenured, you've been here, then your rent has been $500 for the whole 10 or 12 years since we've been doing this project. So the members benefit from it. And then the church get the rental receipts every month to help it continue to do what it is that it's doing. That's part of the way we were able to sustain ourselves in the midst of this pandemic, because we had that extra stream of income. And then you own the homes. So now you get to keep your hand on the pulse of what's going on in the community. So that instead of doing what people would normally do, which would be get a sign and say, picket, say, hell no, drugs must go. If you buy the property, you make the rules. So by virtue of you owning the property, you determine whether there are going to be drugs in this community or not.
Wow. That is so mind-blowing. And so I really, really think this is a model for churches. I'm going to play something really quickly. It's something that you said in an interview that you did for a news channel. So I'm going to share that really quick, because I thought it was beautiful what you said about what the church should be.
So much more than hold services on Sunday. 7 Actions reporter Kimberly Craig shows us how they created a community.
And if you're watching live, let me know if you can hear the video.
Pastor Arrie and his church members wanted to make a difference in the neighborhood surrounding their church, and they ended up creating a village.
I think the church also has a responsibility to do something in the communities that we worship in.
And for Pastor Wilkerson and members of Up From the World Ministries, that meant a mission, buying rundown homes near their church on Puritan, rehabbing them and renting them out to parishioners.
We used to live in Oak Park and had an opportunity.
So I'm going to stop it right there. You said that the church has a responsibility to do something in the community that they're a part of, do something to build the community. And I guess it just makes me think of, what in you that said that your members would support this? Because I've been in church for a little while, and I feel like you tend to get pushback for innovative ideas like the one that you've had. And so did you get any pushback from members? Did you get pushback from the community? Did anyone say, Pastor Eric Wilkerson purchasing all of these homes, what is he going to do with it? Like, I feel like, it looks now that you've been through the fire and the process that everything was smooth, but what was it like actually going through to get all of this approved?
Well, I have a history, first of all, with my church of raising funds and doing what is supposed to be done with those funds. So they trust me in terms of handling resources over a 20-year period of time, which is how long it's been now. We haven't had any issues as it relates to the misallocation and the misappropriation of those funds that are raised in church. So number one, we started off with a history. They know me, I know them. And then number two, the process for getting it done, I'm not really set up to where I go through a whole lot of protocol to get permission to do things. I'm the founder of the church, and so I'm the visionary of the church as well. And so when God drops the vision, then he also provides the provision, and then we just go forward and do what we're going to do. Now, did you have some naysayers? Of course you did. You're going to always have that. I mean, people wouldn't be people if everybody was on board. So, of course, everybody wasn't on board and they had something to say. But once you raise those funds and start doing what you're doing in the community and uplifting the community, people get on board and they see that it's a great idea. Some people can understand it by hearing it, but other people have to actually see it in order for them to understand what it is that you're trying to do. And then later on, the media got a hold of it, and then the rest is history.
Oh, wow. And so that's so beautiful. One of the things that I did see in the article is that you had members of your church help with the renovations. Did you know that you had plumbers, architects, these different type of people in your church before going into this project, or did they raise their hands after you got into the project? How did you identify that talent within your church?
Well, when I started, there was a gentleman that goes to my church. His name is Jerome Drake. And there's another gentleman whose name is Tony Sykes. These were the only two that were on board helping. And then later on, I discovered that we had painters and plumbers and those kind of people in the church. And as they saw what we were doing, then they volunteered to help us out. Of course, we pay them, but they don't charge us what they would normally charge someone to work outside of what we're doing as a church. Because as a member, you have a responsibility to help get this work done as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so you purchased 25 homes and I believe some lots as well. Are you guys done with the renovations of the 25 homes already?
Well, we still have one 2-family dwelling that's on a street called Stopel that we've got to finish. And we have one house where we've been keeping all of our supplies and materials that we use to work with. So we're at the end of that process. So we're just about done with it. And then on the parcels of land that we own, we're going to put some parks and picnic tables and basketball courts and that kind of stuff. That's what we intend to do with the land. We probably have as many lots as we have houses. Oh,
wow. That's crazy. And so you guys are really pretty much building a entire community here. I want to play, there was this nice lady in this interview and I really liked what she said. So I'm going to play a little piece of her clip now. Because one of the things she said, she wasn't a member before you did this. And I thought of reaching people and making an impact as a church and a church focus on economic empowerment. I thought this was a beautiful statement from this lady.
Yes.
It has turned around 100%. I knew I wasn't going to move, so he brought it back better than it was before.
Barbara Newkirk has lived in her home on Santa Rosa for over 50 years, and she liked her new neighbors so much that a couple of years ago, she joined the church.
So I joined Pastor's church. I know every neighbor in every house.
We know each other. We're looking out for each other. We're talking to each other. We're seeing about the elderly that lives in the neighborhood and everything. It's just a wonderful experience.
I can just look at it and say, if I don't ever do anything else with my life, I've done something.
And I just love what the lady said in terms of, wasn't necessarily a member of the church, but seeing how you helped to turn that community around made her want to join the church. And I also love what the brothers said after her about the fact that that community is such a tight-knit community that the entire atmosphere in that community has changed. And can you speak to a little about what is life like in that community now, before and after what you guys did?
Well, before it was plagued with drugs and all the activity that goes on in the hood. And our slogan was bringing the neighbor back to the hood. So that's a little sign that we have on every home that we own on these blocks that we own them on. Now, the difference between then and now is the difference between day and night. And that's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be the light of the world, and we're supposed to bring light to a community. I have a pastor friend here in Detroit that says if your church leaves a community and it's not missed, then you were not doing what you were supposed to be doing in that community. So we've made a mark in this community that's going to be long lasting. So now in the summertime, we have children running up and down the street, riding their bikes up and down the street. People are playing in the street. It just brought life back to the community.
Wow. And so this channel is all about economic empowerment and the different things that you can do to empower a community economically. And one of the things that I think I've seen from what you've been able to do with your church by buying these homes for your members, by keeping the rent low, not only have you empowered them economically, but you've shown the correlations between the economics and everything else that takes place inside of a community. Because when a community have invested value into that community, people show out a little more. People take care of the elderly. People, maybe those that were doing drugs or were drug dealing, maybe even now that they have a rent that is affordable, maybe some of those people, want to join the church and not need to do that anymore. And so I just love this model as something that is shown that it's not even just about the economics of buying a home, but you can really transform a community. And I think this is one model for if we're trying to transform communities, one approach that we can take to make that actually happen. I even think like police brutality, something that is a huge focus right now. I do think that there is an economic aspect to that as well. And so I firmly believe the implications of what your church is doing here and has done has yet to be even seen. And I know that there are already amazing stories out there, but I think, several generations from now, people are still going to be impacted in that community by what you guys have done. And so just so people don't get an idea of this is something that happens overnight, can you tell us how long it takes to reform or rehab one home, and if you don't mind repeating like the cost for it, as well as how long it took you guys to rehab the 25 homes that you have done?
Well, we live in Michigan, so the weather gets cold here, but we can put a home together from top to bottom in about 60 to 90 days, 120 days max. So anywhere from 3 to 4 months, we can get it done. And we were able to purchase the structures from the city of Detroit. A lot of them, we only paid $500 for the structure, for the home. And we're able to put them back together somewhere between 3 and 4 months, we can have that done. And so due to the weather and a lot of other unforeseen conditions, it took us about 10 years to get that done. We could get about 3 houses done a year.
No, and I think that's amazing. I think that aspect of it is important because sometimes we feel like, everything has to get done quickly. Like, you want to do 25 homes, you knock those out in 2 years. No, projects as meaningful and as impactful as this, sometimes it takes 4 years, sometimes it takes 5 years, sometimes it takes 10 years, but you have to have that vision. I want to show a before and after, just to give those that are viewing this now and that those that are viewing this later a little feel for what some of these homes actually looked like before you guys take them on to rehab. And so this is one of the homes right here before the rehab work was done. And after the rehab work was done, this is that same home.
Right. Now you
That
see, you looking at that, you're looking at everything: the roof, the siding, the windows, the porch, and totally rehab the inside, redone the kitchen. We redid the bathrooms. We redid everything that was to be done in the home. And there is a young couple that lives in that home, the Knox family, Breon and his wife Jasmine. They live in that home.
That's beautiful. And I love the fact that you know exactly who lives in which home.
Absolutely.
And man, you have no idea how inspired and motivated I am by hearing the things that you have done here for this community. And like I said, I do believe it's in a model of how a church can truly make a difference in the community. I guess what other projects, and if, like you said on the video, if you do nothing else, well done.
Right.
But are you working on any other projects? Thinking about any other projects right now? Did any other pastors reach out to say, Pastor Eric, you know, man, you're doing your stuff. Can you show us how to do this as well? What's going on from that front?
Well, in terms of what we're doing, we actually just purchased another church in Memphis, Tennessee. So we're expanding our ministry. We're not stopping what we're doing here in Detroit, but we're adding to it. And so what we're in the process of doing now is renovating that church. And then once we renovate that church there in Memphis, Tennessee, then we're going to do what we've done here in the community to have an impact there. And then when we finish that, however God leads, we'll go forward. Now, in terms of pastors reaching out, that's a great question. I just had a church here in Detroit called Straight Gate. It's one of the larger churches here, and they're about to start a project. And the pastor that goes there, that's over that part of the project, he and I were just introduced to each other by some Detroit city officials. And they just want to hear what we had done here at Up From the World Ministry. So it's having an impact. It's getting around the city. For those that want to do it, it's not a very difficult thing to do. You just have to commit to doing something outside of meeting and greeting.
That's beautiful. And so one of the things that you mentioned earlier that I'm going to bring back up here, you mentioned how the funds from renting out the home has helped to sustain your church as well during the pandemic and COVID-19. And so I guess my question is, can you elaborate a little more on that of how impactful it was to have these properties, renting out these properties during a pandemic? Because I certainly know that, you know, some churches have certainly closed down due to the pandemic that didn't necessarily have the infrastructure to go online. And so, you know, even a model for when things like this happen, the unexpected, how can churches end up thriving through that?
Well, the pandemic certainly had an effect on our ministry as it had on any other. But the impact that it had on Up From the World Ministry really wasn't financially, because our people continue to pay their tithe, continue to send in their offering. And in addition, no one during this time neglected to pay their rent. And part of it has to do with the fact that the rent is so low. I mean, that it's $500 a month. Everyone paid their rent. I can truly and honestly say that they paid it for the duration of the time that we've been in the pandemic. So what that allowed us to do is now we don't have to be in a rush to get back in the sanctuary, because we're able to meet all the financial obligations that we have, and we can stay out as long as we need to stay out until we feel that it's safe enough for everyone to return back into the church.
That is so amazing. And one of the things that I like about you, because you don't have to worry about the finances, you guys can stay out of church as long as you need to make sure that there is no health concern for anyone else or any member of your church. And
Right.
Too often, I believe, and not just churches, institutions, organizations, companies, sometimes are in such a bad place financially that they have to jeopardize sometimes the lives of people in order to keep the doors open. And so I think this model is a great model as well, to say that, you know, in those times where things may not be on the up and up in terms of other aspects of the church, and where the, let's say, tithes may be low, or where sales may be low for a traditional company, that when you have a diversified income like your church do, then you can survive and thrive, and you can put your people first. And I think that's the important thing there. I know that you had to work with the city in order to purchase the homes. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure what that process. Can you explain a little about what that took, what that process kind of looked like, who you spoke to in the city, just in case someone is listening to this and saying that, okay, it could be a member of a church, it could be a pastor, but they're saying, okay, how can I work with the city in order to maybe purchase homes that maybe at a slight discount? Because I do remember you told me it was in 2008, I think you started, or 2009 maybe, that this all started happening. So what was working with the city like? How did you make that contact, connect, and reach out?
Well, initially when we first started, now, let me start with what's going on in the city now. Now the city of Detroit has an organization called the Detroit Land Bank Authority, where they have gathered all the abandoned homes that were lost due to people abandoning their homes, not paying the mortgage, or not paying their taxes. So the houses are put in a bank, if you will, that's called the Land Bank Authority. So you can go to the land bank. Once you identify a property and find out that the land bank owns it, the land bank is more than willing to sell you that property. And they give you a rehab schedule that you have to follow and make sure that you rehab that house instead of just purchasing it and allowing it to just sit there. They actually want these houses rehabbed and families in them. But we actually started this project before the Land Bank Authority got up and running. So we would just go down to another entity of the city, and they were just selling us the homes. And because we were rehabbing them, we could go identify a home. If the city owned it, we'd pay whatever it was they were asking. And at that time, it was only $500. And then we would rehab the house, and the city would come after we were done and inspect it. And then the membership would move into it. And what happened is that people would actually go on the block after they seen that we had done like 4 or 5 houses and pick out a house, give us the deposit on the home, and then wait until we rehab that home. And so people in some communities, they were living out in the suburb, they were paying $1,100, $1,200, $1,300 a month. They come over here, now you're saving $500, $600, $700 a month on your rent. That's money that can go back to you and your family. I've taught my church that during the season, when you're making money, when you're reaping, that harvest that you're reaping is not for that season. So make sure you don't spend your money when money is good. When money is coming in, it's not for that season. It's for a season to come. And if you put it up, you'll never lack. But if you spend all your harvest, as soon as you get it out of the field, you're going to struggle. So you have to understand these principles that are tied to finances. And so when we were raising money in our church, I understood that money is seasonal, that there's sunshine, but there's also rain. And you have to prepare yourself for the time that is coming. It's kind of like what Joseph did with Pharaoh, knowing that 7 years of lack and famine is coming. You got to prepare yourself during the time of plenty. So we were able to do that. And once the city got on board, anything that we need, they're more than willing to help us. They give us the exposure to all the information we need, all of the access that we need. They're not fighting us. They actually want to work under this current administration. They want to work with you to get the city up and running, because corporate America has its responsibility and the church has a responsibility also. And no one's coming to save us, man. We're looking for the cavalry. They're not coming. You are the cavalry. You got to get out there, roll your sleeves up, and make it do what it do.
No, that's awesome. And so, I can hear it now. I would love to do this, but I don't have the money for an initiative like this. Something like this may cost too much money. 2008, that was the ideal time to do it, and it's too late now. I guess, can you give some strategies that you use in your church to go about raising the funds? And then when you collect the funds, is that put into a separate account? Like, can you kind of and I know sometimes, you know, it may be some may be sensitive information. So if something's sensitive, feel free not to share. But you know, some of the nuts and bolts for someone who's really interested in doing this. Can you explain what that fundraising process was looking like? Did you have to start a kind of separate organization, or can you do it in the name of the church? Can you explain that to us?
Well, it's real simple. The church has always played the role of redemption and restoration in the lives, especially of African Americans. We've always depended on the church. Anything that was really significant and relevant came through the church for us. Same thing is going to happen in terms of restoring these communities. I mean, to keep it really simple and not to get real intricate in detail, all we did was what I said earlier. We changed the building that we put our tithe and offering in. Instead of taking it and putting it in a bank building and putting it in their account and allowing them to lend it to people to get mortgages or lend it to people to rehab homes, we cut out the middleman and took the money straight to the neighborhood and put it in the homes. And those homes became our bank. So when you go on the block, whatever we put in that home is still in that home, because the value of those homes have greatly increased since we started this project. As a matter of fact, property values all over the United States of America have gone back up. And we're still getting the rental receipts. We're still getting that $6,000 a year per home every year. But the thing is not really the rental receipts, because you still have to maintain the property and all those kind of things. The thing is that we own the real estate. And that's what you want. That's what you want to do. You want to own those things that are in your community. And it's not a difficult thing for a church to do. If you're raising tithe and you're raising offering, don't just let it sit in the bank idle and let them use it and give you less than 1% on it annually. Take the money, be innovative enough to invest in your own community. To put a house back together is really not that difficult. If the house has a great foundation, if the basement of the home is not messed up, you can rehab the rest of it. A sheet of drywall only costs $8 or $10. So if you need 100 sheets of drywall to get a project done, you're only going to spend $800 to $1,000 on the drywall. A window, all you need is 4 screws to put a window in. Take the measurements of your window, have a company make them for you, and put your own windows in. You can't call a window company to do it because it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. You got to be able to do some of this stuff yourself. And it's not a difficult thing to do. You just got to want to do it and see your community in a better condition. And that's good for everyone, because now it cuts down on theft on your autos while you're having service, people breaking in your cars, people breaking in your church, and all that stuff. Because generally when stuff like that happens in the neighborhood, it's somebody in close proximity that does it.
No, that's awesome. And shout out to all of those in the comment section that is really praising what you're doing. I know Kimmy Thompson or Kimberly is really loving the work that you're doing right now. I even see my mom, who's under her alias Sharon Hunte, but it's really Florence over here in the chat. So, and if anyone in the chat has any questions for Pastor Eric, let me know. Feel free to drop it in the chat, and I'll certainly ask him before we end this live stream. But I'm just absolutely blown away by the work that you're doing. I'm absolutely blown away by your vision. And so another thing is, how much experience did you have in rehabbing home? Like, what is your background before becoming a pastor? Because it's a world we live in, but I just hear so many excuses to why we can't sometimes. I'm not saying personally, but just out there. And so what was your background? Do you feel like you need experience in rehabbing the home? Can you shed some light in that area?
Here's the amount of experience I had in rehabbing homes. 0. None. I just had a desire to do it. And once we started doing it, I learned a lot of how you get things done. And what I discovered was it wasn't that difficult to get it done. See, here's how God works with us. You don't necessarily, if you have the vision, the provision is already available. The provision is already in the earth. And the way you put a demand on your faith is by getting up, getting out there and doing it, and allow God to be what we preach that he is in the church. We say that he makes a way out of no way, right? Well, the only way
you preaching, Pastor, you preaching.
The only way we're going to know that he's going to be able to do that is you got to come to the Red Sea. You got to do your part and then watch him open the sea and dry the ground so that you can cross over and go to the other side. What do I mean by that? If you get up and take an initiative, God will lead you to all of the people you need to meet, lead people to you that you need to meet, make resources available. Your congregation, once they see that you're doing something, they'll be happy to contribute to it. And let me say this too, because you have me on here interviewing me because I'm the face of the ministry. But the reality is that without the committed members and the membership that I have, none of this would be possible. If my members weren't on board, if they weren't behind me, if they weren't supporting me financially, if they didn't help me do these projects, if my plumber didn't help, and my painter didn't help, my carpenters, my electricians, if they didn't help me get this project done, then it wouldn't be able to get done. But if you're a leader and you get out there and you start doing it, people will follow you into a thing like this. So you don't have to have the experience in doing it. You just have to get up and do it.
So I got a question out there from Deborah's Journey, and I think it's an interesting question. She said, will the renters have an opportunity down the road to purchase the property they live in? Have you guys considered that at all?
Absolutely. I'm going to do that for those who have demonstrated some level of responsibility, who are responsible enough to own a home and maintain a home. We're going to transfer the ownership of those homes to that membership. But right now we're keeping our hands on it because what we don't want to do is for these houses to get back into the hands of the wrong people and back into the wrong, so that the neighborhood goes back to the same condition that it was in. So in the future, we're going to put them in a position where if they want to own that home, they can own that home.
No, and that's a beautiful thing. I think, and I love Deborah's question because it's a question that I thought about but never wrote down as well. But another thing that I thought about, education is so important because like I mentioned, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. And there was a time in Tobago where none of the natives sold their land. None of them sold their properties. But now in Tobago, we have a lot of people are, the newer generation, a lot of people are selling the property, selling the land to these sometimes major corporations that are bringing in these resorts and pushing out local businesses as well. And the reason why I thought about that is because if you give back the property too early, now we know that, from where the property was to where it is, that's a huge come up for someone. And I know you love your members and you trust your members, but we're all human. And so someone may say, I purchased this home for $20,000 and I can sell it for $100,000. I'm doing that. And then, then you defeat the entire purpose to some degree of the project, of the building the community. And so, it's something, it's not as easy and cookie cutter as it always seems to be, even though something may seem good at times. Sometimes the ramifications of doing good isn't always the type of consequences we would like to see. And so I love the fact that Deborah asked that question because it allowed us to kind of think through what this may look like and how that could even, what is a positive thing can be a negative thing under the wrong conditions, circumstances, and more importantly, the wrong mindset of the individual that may end up owning this home. And so, go ahead.
I like what you said, man. That's really insightful. That you would know human nature like that. How these houses. First of all, people are coming to Detroit from all over the world buying these properties. And sometimes we cry and bellyache about it, but the properties are available. All we had to do was get up and purchase those properties because they see the treasure in the trash sometimes before we see the treasure in the trash. And what you want to do is you want to maintain the ownership, because we used to own all the stores in the community, all the gas stations in the community. Now other nationalities of people own those things, but they didn't take them from us. We sold them. I had a group of people, just to kind of be a little transparent. I had a group of people maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe, if it's been that long, that came over and offered me like $800 and something thousand for all of the property. They wanted to buy, an investor came in and wanted to buy all of these properties and offered me over $800,000 for the properties. And I refused to sell them for a number of reasons, but primarily is because we would, as a church, we would lose control over who's around us and who's in our community. And all they were going to do is get them and push the people out that live there, bring other people in, and just do it as a for-profit thing and not have the vision that we have for this community. So I rejected the money, and we just keep doing what we're doing.
Wow. And so, and another part of this whole thing, and Kimberly mentioned it above, the level of integrity that is needed in order to sometimes withstand some of the temptations. Because, if you were to do it for the church, no one can really blame you. But at the same time, the purpose behind this vision, this ministry that you're starting. And so, keeping that integrity, even when, the big bucks are flashing before your face, is so important. And just for context, because people are from all over the place, for example, in Boston, one home may be $500,000 easily, $800,000 easily. And so for the context, in terms of the purchase value and the value to rehab the home, how much would you say is the total cost there? And then how much would you say what is the home worth now? So the total worth of one home, so we can just do one home, and also the equity that may be in that one home.
Well, we purchased them for $500, most of them. Some $1,000, some $1,500, but the majority of them we bought for $500. To renovate them from top to bottom, on the high end would cost you about $25,000. That's labor and material because of the group of guys that we have helping and working in the project. So
that's $30,000.
You in it, not even $30,000, because it costs you about $25,000 to renovate.
500.
Bought the house for $500. So if we say roughly $30,000, you put a tenant in there, they stay there 5 years, you've recouped that $30,000. $6,000 a year at $500 a month. $500 a month times 12 is $6,000 a year times 5 years is $30,000. So you recoup that $30,000 and you still own the property. Now the property value in this community now for those houses that we paid $500 for, invested $25,000 in, it's probably about $60,000 or $70,000 per home now.
And so that's almost double, triple the original value. And so that is absolutely amazing. And I really wanted to make the context there to show how much equity are actually in these homes. And so if you wanted the money, you can sell off the home and get $50,000-$60,000 of equity in just one home. But I love the vision of creating this community, and I just hope that this video provides a model for others that may want to do the same thing. And so before we go, do you have any final thoughts, questions? Let the people know how they can reach you for your church and anything else that you want to promote.
Well, we're in the city of Detroit, on the west side of the city of Detroit. We're on Puritan. Our address is 7001 Puritan. If you want to reach out to me, if you have some questions, need some insight on getting something like this done, you can find us on Facebook, Up From the World. Put that in, you'll find us. Or just put my name in, you can connect on Facebook. Of course, you know this because we had an interaction before we started. I don't do much social media, so I don't know a whole lot about this technology thing. But we are on Facebook, and we do our lives there. I just want to encourage other people who may be interested. First of all, thank you, man, for taking interest in our story and reaching out to me from Boston, where you are, to me in Detroit, and just giving this project some more exposure. I really appreciate that. And for anyone that's trying to do it, man, ain't nothing to it but to get up and do it. All you have to do is have the desire, get with it, stick with it, start your project, learn about it. Even if you just do one house, you have yourself a house and with no mortgage on it. All these homes are paid for. We don't owe anything on these homes. We renovated them. We fenced in the whole community. So you can't just walk into it. It's fenced in off of the alley. And my pitch to my congregation was, you were going to know the people on the right of you, the left of you, in front of you, and behind you. And when we kept our word on that. So if you're a man of God in a community, you have more responsibility than just preaching the gospel. Jesus, prior to the ministering of the word, was a carpenter. And what God promised us was houses and lands. That's what he's promised. But you have to have the vision and the foresight to be able to see when these things are available. They are available now. Other nations of people recognize it, but I don't know that we're recognizing it on the level that we need to recognize it on. You want to get involved in real estate. It is a sure investment. When property values are low, you can rent those homes. When property values are high, you can sell them if you're into just buying houses, rehabbing them, and flipping. But getting involved in the real estate game is something that we need to give some serious consideration to.
So one thing you said that I don't think I fully realized it for myself. I think my assumption was that you paid in cash the 500 for the homes, and then the rehab you took out a loan for. But are you saying that your church financed the rehabs as well?
We financed the rehab as well. We didn't get a loan to do any of this. We raised the money in the church. And see, once you get your project up and running, then you can
provides funds.
Then you take those rental receipts and put them back into the next property. You keep repeating that process over and over again until you're done with it. So that way, when you're done, you don't owe anyone anything. All these homes are free and clear. We have the deed to every last one of them.
Wow, that's the key right there. Making sure that you take the rental receipts and put it back into the next property. And so, I just want to do a big disclaimer out there. I love what you're doing because, do not, as a church or individual, take on more than you can handle. You hear Pastor Eric. They own these property free and clear. They don't owe nobody. And so, you may have to start where a place where you really take on that one property for a while until maybe you get to a place where you can comfortably handle that property. Because as he said, their church finance completely the renovations and the purchase. And so he don't owe nobody nothing. One of my favorite scriptures is the borrower is slave to the lender. And so, you do not want to go in huge debt for these stuff. But another thing that I think is also key that you did that I want to highlight is being in the right place at the right time and positioning yourself for the right opportunity. Because someone may say, 2008 was the right opportunity. No, you can position yourself or begin positioning yourself for when the opportunity comes, you can take advantage of it. Because there are plenty other churches and plenty other people around that were not able to do what Pastor Eric Wilkerson was able to do because he put himself in the right position to buy these homes and had the right mindset to complete his vision. So again, Pastor, I thank you. I thank you a million. I thank you for your church for allowing you to, spend some time with me. I thank you, taking the time out of your day. And even, with the technical difficulties we had, thank you for, staying with me for the entire interview. And for everyone that is in the comment section, thank you guys for leaving comments. Thank you guys for watching. You see there's a lot of love for you out there. And so thank you. Ebony said, this just reminded me to go pay my tithes. I don't know if she's a member of your church or not. I'm going to highlight her. Maybe she is. But, somebody's church is getting some tithes.
Her name is Ebony.
Ebony Coach Runner. I may have butchered.
Cochran. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Cochran. Okay.
As a matter of fact, she's one of our great members of our church. She's
Amen.
She's doing her thing. She's doing her thing.
Well, thank you, Ebony. Thank you, Dexter. Thank you, Sister Linda Jackson Porter. Thank you, everyone that showed up. Thank you for my mom who came in earlier, dropped something in the chat. Thank you. And, I look forward to having these conversations of these life-changing conversations, really community-changing conversations. So everyone have a blessed day. God bless y'all and have a great week.